This episode of the Critical Careers Podcast is sponsored by CBRE. Hi, I'm Joyce Wady. Welcome to the Critical Careers Podcast. On today's show, we're speaking with Melanie Kiely, Senior Director for Global Site Selection for Oracle. Melanie shares her insights on the challenges women face in rising through the leadership ranks and how she's now mentoring the next generation of women to lead with confidence. We dive into the unspoken rules of career advancement, the power of mentorship, and what it really takes to build inclusive leadership in the digital age. We hope you enjoy the show. Melanie, thank you so much for joining us today. When you and I talked for the Critical Careers book, we had such a lovely conversation, and you spoke really eloquently about the challenges that you have faced in your career, sometimes as being the only woman in the room, and kind of how you have overcome those, have become, and how they help make you the leader you are today, and how you use that as inspiration to mentor others. And so I really wanted to have a chance for you and I to talk about that in a little bit more depth and kind of dig into it a bit more, because I think it would be really interesting for others to listen to and for others to hear kind of what your journey has been, and hopefully it inspires them in their journey as well. So what I really kind of wanted to just take a really simple step back and say, what kind of first drew you into digital infrastructure? Kind of how did you get to this point where you are today?
Sure. So I started my career out as a real estate lawyer. So out of law school, I went into a general practice firm. I did some family law, so a lot of divorces and custody negotiation, some criminal law, personal injury, and real estate. And I was really drawn to real estate. I liked the transactional element of it. It was interesting to me. From there, I ended up seeing a position with American Tower looking for a real estate lawyer. And that's really how I pivoted into digital infrastructure. And American Tower is a tower provider globally where wireless customers co-locate onto their towers. And I just thought the whole industry was fascinating. And, that happened to me back in 2003, and it's been off and running since then. Every year I learned more and more. I learned how the digital infrastructure brought innovation and technology to the masses. I From there I ended up going to T-Mobile. They were looking for a co-location attorney to help build out their tower portfolio to increase the valuation of their tower portfolio. So I relocated from Boston to Seattle for that opportunity. And I was at T-Mobile for about 12 years, and I went there to be an attorney for to build out the tower portfolio. But in a 12-year career, I did many different things. So I moved into doing commercial cloud transactions with the AWS's, the Googles, and Microsofts. Build distributed antenna facilities from cradle to grave, and got the full scope of digital infrastructure from the real estate element to the software and cloud element. And you could see the trajectory of cloud. You could see it, right? Like everybody was so excited about being off-prem, and there was a lot of innovation coming out. This was about the 2015 mark. So I started to really eye the data center industry, and it was very intentional, my pivot into data centers. So that really brought me into the data center fold, and I transitioned from being a lawyer to business executive, focused on data center negotiation, and it's been an incredible journey.
I love it because so many of the people that I've talked to have talk about how they kind of stumble into the industry. So I love the fact that you said that this was a very intentional decision on your part. So it's great to hear that. You've talked about, when you came into American Tower, like you've had a 22-year career in digital infrastructure in all different sorts of, elements of it at its broadest term. Has there anything along the way that surprised you about being a woman in digital infrastructure? Because I mean, life was pretty different 20 years ago, speaking from my own experience, and versus where we are today. So are there anything along the way that has surprised you?
Yeah, and coming in as a lawyer too, a lawyer is a pretty conservative profession. So even as a young lawyer, I would get comments from judges about, I had ear piercings, and I would get comments from judges on that. Or I'd have mentors telling me I should be wearing a skirt to court instead of a pantsuit.
Right.
Um, And then when I went into digital infrastructure and as a lawyer, I should have had the confidence, right? I at least had a JD behind me, right? That could kind of bring some presence to a room. And there's a lot of women starting out in their career that don't even have that, and how kind of not intimidated, but not included maybe they may feel in the conversation. So when there's predominantly men in a meeting, they have already naturally created either friendships or have networked, and there's more of this natural relationship that they've built over time in a particular profession. And for me, being a young lawyer in a room of mostly men, male engineers or construction professionals, quite often I was like, "Okay, maybe I don't know enough, and that's why I'm not included in the
Yeah.
conversation,
Yeah.
or, I'm not included in the golf tournament or whatever," right? To build these additional relationships. And I was a bit naive at that time too. I was in, my mid-20s to mid-30s, and didn't really realize that profound impact at that time when you're not part of these natural ways to connect, and whether it's networking, team building events afterwards, or so you for me, if I could go back, and what I really try to emphasize with the women that I mentor and the men as well is really build your network early, right? Like, just doing the work is not enough. You need to build your network and your sphere of influence of people that think highly of you, and you can help them and they can help you. And it really does have a strong impact on your ability to advocate for positions that you want in a room, of men that you may not have a close relationship with.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I do think that's a very natural response is, oh, it must be me, or I must not know what I need to know to be in this room. I mean, and it's a really good reminder to hear that because you recognized, "Oh, actually, wait a second, it's not necessarily me, it's the fact that there's another dynamic going on here that I'm not necessarily aware of or can't participate in, or I just haven't participated in." So,
That's right.
and I don't know that people necessarily stop to think about that quite so maybe not the first point that they go to when they're kind of questioning what's happening around them.
It's unconscious on both ends. It's unconscious for me at the time. I was not aware that I was doing this to myself, like questioning myself. And then the 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 mostly my male colleagues were not aware that they were not consciously aware that I was getting left out either,
Okay.
right? So it was more of this unconscious interaction between colleagues that was actually something I had to become very focused on changing for myself. I had to not feel that way, and I did a lot of reading and a lot of networking with other executive women to ultimately build the tools to kind of come in and feel more empowered to lead the discussion, or to be the leader within the room. And it's taken time to build that confidence with more knowledge and more relationship building. But again, I feel very grateful that I can help other new employees coming into the workspace see that earlier and work on it
Yeah.
earlier.
So was there anything specific like, was there any particular, like, networking group or moment where you kind of where it started to really click for you?
Yeah. So there was a really profound moment. So I had my children later in life. And when I had my kids and went back to work, I was like, how do people do this? Like, how do people have a family, have little babies at home, and still try to raise their hand for projects, right? Like, I pretty much the before work extra work I used to do and the after work extra work I used to do is no longer on that table, right? Those hours are no longer really available. It went especially when you have young babies. And I joined, the Women's Leadership Network as a member at T-Mobile, and that really was one of the best decisions of my life and pivotal decisions of my life, because I was around other executive women that gave me information that I needed, right?
Yeah.
Instead of me
Yeah.
trying to figure it out, I had access to women that could help me negotiate increased salaries, or women that could give me tips of how to optimize the family life and career life, and how to be efficient at both to get through everything you needed to do in the job. So that was really pivotal. And then as I continued to be a member there, I took on leadership roles. I eventually led the organization, but that was really so eye-opening on the power of networking and the power of just getting the straight information from the horse's mouth, right? Instead of me trial and error trying to figure it out or reading another self-help book. It was very powerful to be around these executive women and male allies that may have been, 10, 15 years older than me, that could just help accelerate like how I can optimize my career and juggle family life.
I mean, if you think about how many other ways in our lives, it's those natural conversations that you have with friends or that you have with relatives or you have with people, outside that are helping you learn things. The fact that we even kind of question or don't necessarily apply that same sort of relationship building into our work life, it's almost counterintuitive because there's always things to learn from others. And if you are in a place and you're with a group of people who are willing to offer that helping hand, it is definitely invaluable in making sure just helping round you out as, as a career person, as a professional, as a leader and all that kind of stuff.
That's right, and I ended up, getting other, peer mentors that would help give me these nuggets, like, I'd say, "Hey, being a lawyer most of my career, I wanna learn more about finance, I wanna gain more of a financial acumen," and then they would tell me, "Well, so and so's an expert here, and they help me here, so go, try to meet with them on a regular basis," or take up a nonprofit board position and learn finance. Like, I just started getting clear nuggets of gold on how to, again, help accelerate my own skill set and help me continue to move forward. And it's very they help me, I help them, and over a
Yeah.
decade, I have these beautiful relationships with these people that we still, there's people that were my mentors that I'm now helping as a mentor, whether either finding new jobs or finding contacts to help them in their career. So it's just been really, an excellent opportunity to build a network, build strong relationships, and help one another out, which
Yeah.
is very enriching.
Yeah, no, I love that because I do find myself now, like, I like that whole idea that people who at once helped you, like, you're able to help them now in a different way,
Exactly.
and I think it's just a nice full circle moment, and as someone who I always joke that I collect friends throughout my life, like, I don't go through, like, certain phases, I always just seem to add more people in. It's nice to kinda hear that from a business perspective as well, from a networking perspective of how you can just bring more people in, and someday you may be able to help them in a way that they once helped you, so it's a really nice thought.
Yeah, and the thing that's great about it too is a lot of these women and men that have built this relationship with over time, they're super energized about the industry as well. So it's a very fun conversation where you have just, everybody's excited about the growth of the industry, what the future holds, the innovation. So it's rewarding, and it's fun to talk about things that you have in common.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So do you think younger women coming into the industry today, are they facing similar challenges or have things kind of evolved so it's a different set of challenges?
I think things have evolved and there's a different set of challenges. At the same time, that this systemic, really unconscious bias is it will take decades to change, right? So it's 2025. I was just on a call the other day with 45 men and I was the only woman, right? It was a technical call. And
Yeah.
I had to be on that call telling you know, delegating a bunch of responsibility to technical engineers that I don't have a technical expertise in. So I had to, try to find gaps in understanding and then ask people that didn't report into me to go execute on something on a subject matter that I wasn't really strong in. And when I try to think of, like, could I have handled that when I was 25 years old? Probably not, right? So although things have changed and there's more awareness, there's just so much more work to be done, right? Like, and then, what I appreciate more is I am seeing men be more aware of this dynamic as well, and kind of stepping in to help give some of the newer women a voice, right? Like,
Right.
intentionally creating space for someone to ask questions, or to add input to something, which never happened when I was that age, right?
Right.
When I was
Right.
younger, like, that just never happened. I was quite often asked to take notes. Right? So,
Yeah,
um
or grab, or grab the cup of tea or coffee or whatever to the,
exactly.
to start the meeting off with. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. So although I do think it's different, that and we have made quite a bit of progress. I think there's so much more progress to be made. There's still so many more women and underrepresented talent to be brought into this industry. And there's a lot of work to be done there. And I do see companies are making an effort to do that, which is really awesome.
Yeah, because I mean, the reality is the way that, AI is going and the way that, that this industry is growing so fast to keep up with that technology that's coming, you need a lot of different voices at the table. It can't just be one perspective. You have to have a lot of different viewpoints and perspectives because it's things that we're all going to be using. So you need to have that represented in the development of it as well.
Yeah, that's right. And especially, right, there's different dynamics of what women and non-white people face, that you want to make sure that there's a seat at the table for them to be developing this innovation. Otherwise, AI is going to leave out that perspective, and it's just going to compound the inequity around it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So when you've talked about the biases and stuff that you have encountered, like how did you find the confidence to push back on that? Whether it was 15 years ago or 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 5 minutes ago, where do you get the confidence to push back, or do you kind of just look at it more as I have to pick my battles on how I address it?
I is this is such a good question, because women face the likability penalty. So for me, I can be very direct and very aggressive. I'm from Boston. My parents kind of beat that into me, to be firm. Not literally, but it was pretty much stick up for yourself or you're gonna get run over, right? So I had to learn how to be less, um, less abrupt, and more and calmer and more professional. That was something I had to learn as a younger, attorney coming into the business. At the same time, I over-indexed, right? I started to become, like, hey, too likable or too friendly, and I would face um, feedback that, "Okay, well, she's too nice. Can she lead?" So I had this kind of pendulum shift between 2 approaches. And then over time, I just, again, through me building this network of, other, mentors farther along in their career, they all told me the same thing: "Be yourself. Being a firm creates leadership. People don't like it. That's okay. Continue to be firm." And I have been that way. At the same time, I can be empathetic and really help nurture team or nurture mentees. However, I needed to know if I need to lead teams and get them to follow through with things, I did need to be clear. I needed to be direct. And that actually is more helpful in getting the outcome that you need. It creates less confusion for the teams that you're leading, because you are, clearer. So it ends up it I had to learn that over time, though, and be aware of it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's important because I think sometimes it's really easy to look at a skill set that someone has and you just kind of assume that that's what they naturally bring to the table or they naturally know how to do it. And the reality is a lot of those kind of characteristics, whether it is being empathetic or it is being firm, those are things that a lot of people probably do have to learn along the way. So just to kind of hear that reinforced and go, you know, even if you don't necessarily feel that's your strength today, it doesn't mean that it won't be in the next 10 years. And it doesn't mean that you can't get to that point if that's really what you want.
That's right, that's right. And sometimes you have to go to environments that welcome your style, right? That
Yeah.
you may be with a manager that you're bumping heads, there's just a personality conflict there. You can still find rewarding work in different organizations, and you just have to be honest with yourself, right? Like, "Hey, am I getting a bit blocked here in my development because there's, like, some personality conflict happening?" Or is there another avenue where I can be around an environment where people, actually see my characteristics as a strength for the organization and navigate your career that way. When I was younger, I was more on autopilot, like, I had this misunderstanding that if you work hard, you put your head down, get the work done, overachieve on the work, that the promotions will naturally come, and that only takes you so far. And a lot of my career has been really being like, "Okay, what interests me? What skills am I lacking? Where can I go get those skills within the organization that I'm in or the company that I'm in to continue to kind of build my portfolio, my personal portfolio of strengths and skills that help me get to that next promotion or that next job that is something that excites me," right? So I think a message for everybody is really to be intentional about your own personal career development. Don't leave that up to your manager. They have,
Right.
10 to 15 other people that they're trying to develop. You really need to take accountability to career path, the career and the growth that you want and you deserve. And I have, like, maps and stuff that I would write down, and I carry them forward year after year, and they build and they evolve into new things, but, like, the same network map or the same career development, plan that I had 10 years ago has evolved over time, and it's been because I've been intentional about being like, "Hey, I need to go get these skills if I wanna get this," and then put that into action.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, over a 10-year period, we all evolve too. What your interests were 10 years ago is gonna be different than what you're looking for next today, but, so, I mean, that all makes perfect sense just to let it grow and evolve with you, but I think just to have that kinda clear vision of where you wanna go is really helpful in kinda building the career that you want it to be, so,
That's right.
yeah,
I also
yeah.
think another tip for those, moving into more career development, for me also, I used to be very nervous about public speaking, and really, you need to get your brand out there. There's so many brilliant people that are doing great work, and you can really amplify your own brand the more you engage either with other on panel sessions or, public speaking opportunities. And I used to get so nervous about it, and then, again, learned this through the networking groups and stuff was I would create my own narrative of things that I wanted to portray about myself and practice it, right? I'd be practicing it, like, in the mirror in the morning or on my commute to work so I can really get my pitch down. So, like, a lot of what I learned over time is a lot of these women and male leaders that I really admired, they put a lot of work into practicing getting having that external appearance and that external brand presence. So that's also something that to put work into because it does help amplify your career growth and your brand out there in the marketplace.
Yeah, so I heard recently, and I hadn't really thought about it this way, but about that whole concept of developing your personal brand, and that how something like LinkedIn can be a strong platform for it, but you have to be consistent, and you have to show up, you have to be consistent, you need to know what your voice is, you need to know what you're trying to say, all of that kind of stuff. It was an interesting conversation of no, actually, really think about that. Like, yes, you want to perform well, you want to do a good job, you want to make sure that you're navigating navigating the right career opportunities. But there's a big component I do think of that is about how do you develop what your own personal brand is and how do you portray that and, how can you use that to your advantage as well?
That's right. And there's a woman actually, that you all highlighted in Critical Careers who's doing a lot of panel training for women.
Oh,
She's
Katrona, yeah, yeah.
yeah, from JLL. I love that. I mean, just getting in a room, helping each other feel empowered to own your skill set, amplify your greatness, and getting the training to do it and the reps in so that when you actually are live, that you can, portray yourself well. I love that. I think it's things like that that make a difference.
Oh, 100%, and I got to sit in on she did, like, a little mini session for a colleague a couple weeks ago, and I got to sit in on that, and the thing that was really amazing about it is, I mean, there was joking, there was laughter, there was a very comfortable feeling in the room, but it was also very direct, it was
Yeah,
very much of,
yeah.
"Nope, that's not gonna work, you're doing this is what's gonna happen if you do that," like, it wasn't a soft feel-good session, it was a supportive environment, but it was this is if you want to be successful with this, these are the things you need to do. And it was very forthright. And I think everybody felt comfortable in the room sharing that. And the person who was learning was in a space that they could take that in without feeling uncomfortable as well,
Isn't that
So,
great? I mean,
oh, it's amazing.
getting direct feedback by others that want you to be successful are true gems, right? They're true gems because you can't see your blind spots. So when you have a group of people that want to see you be successful and you elevate yourself, getting that feedback of how you can be better or what you may not be seeing is just such a gift.
Well, and someone said to me a long time ago that, if a manager or a colleague or somebody cares enough to give you that direct feedback, it's because they really do care and they want you to be successful. If they didn't care about you or they didn't think you had the potential, then they wouldn't bother.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's always kind of sat with me. It's like, okay, I may not want to hear this right now, but I appreciate they took the moment to tell me or to,
Exactly.
have the conversation with me. So let's talk a little bit about mentorship. What were some of the strong mentor relationships like that you've had throughout your career?
I've had a really, my mentors have really been, key components to my career success. Yeah, I've put in the work, right? Like I definitely put in the work, but having mentors that care about your career success and care about seeing you develop are just, they're just, been so impactful for me and some important ones, I had a woman that was actually the executive sponsor of the Women's Leadership Network when I was at T-Mobile, and I had shared with her, "Hey, what would you tell yourself 10, 15 years ago if you could go back?" And she told me that she would be more direct right out of the gate
Okay.
and that
Okay.
and I needed to hear that. I was in that position where I was, like, either being too nice or I was being too direct, and I was either too aggressive or too nice and not being considered a leader, and so I needed another woman that I admired to actually tell me, like, "Go for it, be yourself," leaders are firm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I definitely needed to hear that. And other important, mentors, they actually gave me a platform, right? So my recent boss regularly had me attend different panel sessions to really get my brand out there. I had similar thing. I had another executive mentor at T-Mobile where ultimately gave me a couple of platforms where I was in front of like 50,000 people for
Oh,
the
wow.
company and getting to really articulate myself and communicate and these are gems that don't come often. So if this happens in your career, practice your speech, right? Practice over and over again so you can articulate yourself in an elegant way. Be very grateful, right? Like all those mentors I still keep in touch with. It typically will send them like a holiday card or I'll help amplify them and their career changes. But there's just been so many key mentors that have been pivotal to me for my career success that I'm super grateful for.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's great. So I mean, if what from what you learned from them, how does that influence your approach to mentoring today, for the people that you are a mentor to?
I just see the impact that they had on me and on my career, so I wanna give that back to others as well. And I also think of myself again as that, 25 to 30-year-old woman that was trying to I was trying to make my own brand in the industry, and how intimidated I felt at the time, that I really wanna reach my hand out to help others. And I tell them, like, I used to question myself whether it was me. So I'm very vulnerable with my mentees and share my own things that, my own confidence phases where I may have struggled, to just share, like, this is part of the journey, and this is how you can take those kind of dips in your career journey, learn something really exceptional, and then accelerate your career development. So I think mentorship is really critical, and I regularly mentor people, because I do think it's so important, and I've had so many wonderful mentors that I want to give back.
Yeah, yeah. Is there anything that you see that you find yourself telling different mentees, time and again? Are there any consistencies that like of younger women that are coming to you that you might kind of find you're having to kind of give them the same sort of guidance or advice?
Yeah, there's a few. So, one of the ones that has been very eye-opening to me is, at times, some women feel intimidated, or they may be having conflict with their husbands or their partner, because they want to take on an extended role of management or leadership, but they're not getting that support from their partner to do so.
Then you become a relationship counselor in the midst of it all.
Exactly. I was like, couples therapy, and I share, my husband and I went to marriage counseling. So, like, I actually think it's very important. Um, for me, as when I go back and think about myself, you really need to have a partner in life that wants you to be successful, and you have to jointly share the load at home, whether that's, hiring help to help with things that you can't get to, ensuring that your partner's in 50%, you're in 50%. Sometimes that ebbs and flows. Like, if my husband travels, then I'll have a more intensive week. And if I travel, he'll have a more intensive week. But at the end of the day, he's my biggest fan, right? Like, he is my biggest fan for me to continue to reach for more. He knows that I'm energized by learning more, by growing more, by this industry. He sees that I'm having fun, and he is fully supportive of that, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a key thing, and it's a sticky thing to say, right? Because you have to be careful, because it's a relationship that but it's true. I mean, some of these women are holding themselves back for like big career financial bumps, because of this conflict that they're
Yeah.
experiencing. And again, for me, I went through the math, and I was like, this is my earning potential over, 15 years. If I take myself out of the game when my kids are little, this is going to be how much I get hit. And it was very clear to me, like, no, that's not going to happen. Um but I had to advocate for myself, and help my husband see that as well. And then, obviously, he's, like, a big, he's my number one fan, so I think that's really critical. Another thing that's super important is the whole networking thing as well. So many women are in this, caretaking role, where they're either primary caretakers for the kids at home, or for aging
Yeah.
parents, and then they can't fit in the networking. And I keep stressing to them, like, put in an hour or 2 hours a month where you go and meet somebody, even if it's virtual, right? But
Yeah.
do that work, because it's so critical, and consider it your career development. It's your career development, where you're building a relationship with somebody that's gonna help you, and that you can help over time. That's gonna be, more it ends up being more impactful than you realize at the early stages.
Yeah, and that's so true because as I'm listening to you say that, and when I think about when I was in my 30s, the number of, I lived on the East Coast of the US. The number of times I would take day trips, I would catch that 6 a.m. flight or that 6:30 a.m. flight, and then I would take the last flight home at night. was only really disrupting my family life for a day as a and and the times that I missed that dinner or missed, being able to kinda hang out and linger a little bit longer and have a little bit more of those networking kinda conversations with people, it I didn't at the time, I was thinking it was the right decision, but it really did shortchange a lot of those, of those little moments that I could have just taken the first flight back the next morning, or something
Yes.
like that, and now that my kids are older and I have so much more freedom and flexibility, I'm like, "This is great." Tonight I'm going to a networking event. There's, like, another one happening later this week. It's
Yeah.
like fully embracing it and taking advantage of it now for sure.
That's great. Good. That's awesome. Good job. One other thing too, just to put this out here, is women tend to want to make sure they check the boxes on all the career qualifications. And I've learned, especially this industry right now, the data center industry, like every avenue is new. So really
Yeah.
nobody knows what's going on.
Right. Right. Right.
So and when I say that, I'm being funny, like, obviously, there's experts in the field that are, like, brilliant, and they PhDs, and they have, opinions of how it's going to evolve, but there's so much nuance that's happening that not everybody knows everything anyway, so, like, if you're out there and you're uncertain, go for the job anyway. It signals to your manager that you're looking for more. It also helps you learn, okay, I need to go work and get these other skills. Maybe I didn't get that and I needed to get these other skills.
Right.
And
Right.
and actually one of my mentors had shared, she had applied for like 20 director positions and got rejected on all of them before she got her first one. So this
Wow.
is like the thing of with resilience and the perception of failure. Just
Yeah.
keep going for it until somebody says yes.
Yeah. Well,
So yeah.
no, and it's interesting because I mean, I think we may have talked about this like for the book interview, but that idea because you had said before about like always just assuming that if you perform your best, that's going to be enough. And what happens and what changes if women started to think about what their potential was or applied for those jobs based on what they know their potential could be, or people got hired or women got hired because of their potential, not just because of their performance. Like, that really changes the game in many ways.
It does, it does. It's helping putting somebody in a position that may not be entirely ready, but they have the grit, the determination, the resilience to push through and be great. I think we all have to see that within ourselves as well, and just go for it. Anything I've just gone for has always been a good move for me. Either even if I didn't necessarily like enjoy the position or the project that I did, I learned so much for it that set me up for something else. That in retrospect, when you look back, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I did that, even though it may have been a struggle for me at the time. So I just think going for it is always, excellent. And it happens in phases too, right? Like, I have a hard time doing everything all at once. So, like, when my kids were babies, it was really difficult to say, "Okay, I'm gonna go get this new, executive job where I'm on the road all the time." And you just have to know, like, what but while they were babies, I was doing these other projects that were gaining me to get these skill sets, which ultimately helped me get the job that I have today. So your life is full of different phases, and just be intentional about what you're trying to develop within yourself during these different phases to help you get ultimately where you want to be.
Yeah, my mom gave me a piece of career advice that I'm sure she had no idea at the time that was gonna be impactful, but she said, "You can have it all, you just don't necessarily have to have it all at the same time."
Yeah.
And it was so clarifying to that point of, okay, maybe at this stage of my career, I'm just kind of on a bit of a plateau, but it's gonna give me these skill sets, or I'm gonna be able to learn this, this, and this, so that when that next big opportunity comes, I'm able to take it. And I think it's just an interesting mindset of, don't worry about if you can't handle it all today. You will be able to handle it all in the totality of your career?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So, I think my last question for you is what's given you hope right now in your career or what you're seeing in the industry?
This industry is so exciting. I feel like I have the best job that, I have a dream job coming out of law school as that, 24-year-old woman. I never imagined I'd be here. Cloud innovation and all the product innovation that's going to come out of this is pretty spectacular. And you see it over time with even like Uber or and all the social media avenues, all the applications that are coming up. There's a lot of things with like smart grid and to just be able at the scale to provide help globally to different communities is exceptional, and that's very exciting. So, like for me, my team, we enable the infrastructure for the product innovation, and
Wow.
it's very clear to me the impact that our team brings. So, like to be able to go from being a real estate lawyer to enabling this, like the new technological revolution, is pretty profound, and that keeps me very excited. I mean, that is just it's the best job. Every avenue of the data center industry is super interesting, whether it's the regulatory environment, the sustainability element, alternative power sourcing, liquid cooling designs, like all of it is so incredibly fascinating. And to be able to be in the middle of it is so fun and very energizing.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. And I think everybody I've talked to would, has totally agreed with that idea that we're all here for a reason. So,
Yes.
well, thank you so much, Melanie. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today. And it's been great having you on the show.
Joyce, it's been fabulous. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity. I just admire all the work that you and the team have done for Critical Careers. It's extra work, and I went through all the profiles in the book, and all the women are just amplified so beautifully. And I appreciate all the work that you've done for it. It's
Oh,
really
well, thank you
incredible.
so much.
Yeah.
That's so great. That's such a great note to end the conversation on. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Critical Careers. A special thank you to our sponsor, CBRE, for their support in helping us share the stories of the people shaping the future of digital infrastructure. To learn more about CBRE, visit www.cbre.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like, share, and follow the podcast. Thanks for listening.